Hey yo everyone, Battlefield 6 has arrived, or at least our first real look at it has. There's a lot to dig into with this one. What was once one of the pinnacles of modern first-person shooters has now become something of a shell of itself in recent years. However, DICE and EA are spinning that broken record once again and promising us fans that this Battlefield will be different. This will be the one that goes back to the franchise's roots, or so I so desperately want to believe. From the rumored budget to the apparent insane expectations, it really feels like EA is betting the farm on Battlefield 6. So, today, let's talk about the Battlefield franchise and how it fell from a place of glory to whatever the heck it's supposed to be now. Just like every game in the series before it, the trailers and gameplay reveals for Battlefield 6 have been incredible. But if you take just one thing from this video, it's this: do not pre-order. EA may be able to trick their shareholders or the casual gamer, heck, they may even be able to trick themselves, but we cannot let them pull another one on us. Until we know for sure that this Battlefield will be different, that this will be what DICE and EA is promising us, please do not pre-order. Anyway, enough of my soapbox. As always, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get it. Alrighty, before we begin, let's take a look back at how the Battlefield franchise ended up in this mess. Back in the early 2010s, the Battlefield games were on a continuous upward trajectory, surpassing other first-person shooters such as the Medal of Honor franchise, and honestly was one of the few titles out there that could actually hold a candle to Call of Duty. I think it really grew into its role of a more realistic military sim with large-scale battles filled with vehicles and destructibility. Sure, Call of Duty was a bit more streamlined and accessible for the casual gamer, but those who wanted over-the-top chaos, Battlefield was the way to go. Battlefield Bad Company is probably where the modern Battlefield entries began, as this is where Frostbite, their proprietary game engine that gives us the nearly completely destructible environments, was first introduced. An updated engine, Frostbite 1.5, was used in the follow-up games, Battlefield 1943 and Bad Company 2, where reception was very positive. Battlefield 3 continued to build upon this by adding in even more destructibility with Frostbite 2.0 and additional vehicles such as fighter jets. DICE also added in some cool features that made the game feel more immersive, like deploying bipods to help with accuracy or vision blur when a player is under enemy suppressive fire. Battlefield 3 is also when players were first given the large-scale 64-player matchmaking, but only for PC at the time. Then in 2013, 2 years after Battlefield 3 launched, DICE released Battlefield 4, which was my first Battlefield game. Battlefield 4 was the first in the series to use Frostbite 3, and it really went all in on the destructible environments, adding in this new feature called Levolutions, where a major event would take place during a match. The most famous one was probably the Siege of Shanghai, where a massive skyscraper located in the center of the map could be taken down using explosives to blow up the base of the building. Other maps had their own levolutions, from a dam breaking that would cause the level to fill with water to a storm brewing in the Pacific that would affect visibility and traversal. The game also brought in more vehicles, weapon customizations, and 2 new game modes, Obliteration and Defuse, which were essentially Call of Duty's Sabotage and Search and Destroy, respectively. Anyway, the game was very successful, but not without its blemishes. Even though it sold millions of copies, Battlefield 4 had a terrible launch riddled with bugs and glitches. It was so bad that a DICE executive even publicly acknowledged that the state of the game damaged the franchise's reputation. It was eventually cleaned up, but the precedent for crappy launches followed by a year of bug fixes was set. 2 years later, in 2015, Visceral Games, the studio behind the original Dead Space trilogy, were tasked with the next Battlefield game, Battlefield Hardline. This one is kind of the black sheep of the family. All of the previous Battlefield games were obviously military shooters, but Hardline took the IP and gave it a cops and robbers twist. Despite the game having generally positive reviews and what I thought was a really fun twist on the Battlefield formula, the game never got a sequel. Not only was Hardline denied a follow-up, but the studio behind it, Visceral Games, was shut down by EA in 2017, reallocating the devs to other teams within the company. Sadly, I don't think we'll ever get any more Battlefield Hardline, which sucks because I genuinely thought it was fun and had decent potential. The following year, 2016, DICE launched my personal favorite entry in the series, Battlefield 1. God, this game was incredible. To this day, I have never experienced a game with so much aura. It's kind of hard to explain, but everything about this game immerses me. Like, the atmosphere is just unbelievable with the gas masks, the weapons, the limited vehicles, the map design. I was really hesitant about a World War I shooter, but golly, did Battlefield 1 ever deliver. The graphics are still incredible looking, the sound design is the best in the series, and the meticulously crafted maps all feel extremely detailed and real. It's all the little things that really make this Battlefield the most immersive. The screams of agony, the dogfights roaring overhead, the diversity in level design. Sure, it might have taken a few steps back considering there are no major Levolution events that change the maps, but they do feature some sort of big event in the form of dreadnoughts, armored trains, and zeppelins. Just like Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1 had a tough launch. I remember pretty vividly having server issues trying to get into matches when the game first came out. Despite all of that though, Battlefield 1 is the best-selling entry to date with over 25 million copies sold, and honestly, it deserves it. Then Battlefield 5 launched a couple years later in 2018 and it had a rough start to say the least. Whereas Battlefield 1 felt like the pinnacle for Battlefield immersiveness, Battlefield 5 felt like a crappy cash grab filled with all of the industry's worst trends. A lame battle royale mode, a lack of historical accuracy, and worst of all, crappy microtransactions. The game eventually got a bunch of updates that made it a lot better, and today, in 2025, I'd say it's one of the better games in the series. The DLC packs are all excellent, the gameplay feels very refined, and I'd argue it has the best feeling vehicle controls of any Battlefield game. Maybe not as immersive and authentic as its predecessor, but Battlefield 5 is a far cry from being a terrible military sim. Unfortunately, you only get one first impression, and the poor marketing for Battlefield 5 left the game with disappointing sales numbers. The following year, in 2019, Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, blamed the game's failure on DICE focusing too much on a single-player campaign instead of a battle royale mode, which, at the time, was starting to explode in popularity. All of this, tragically, foreshadows what was to come in DICE's next entry in the franchise. Battlefield 2042 launched in 2021 and was bad. I wanted so badly for this game to be good. It had all of the hallmarks of a classic Battlefield game. A modern-ish setting with an emphasis on immersiveness and massive all-out warfare. DICE was promising a bigger multiplayer experience than ever, with next-gen consoles being able to host 128-player lobbies. Now, they didn't exactly bring Levolutions back, but they did introduce game-changing weather events such as tornadoes and sandstorms. There was also a plethora of content with the new Portal mode that would allow fans to enjoy older Battlefield classics through custom matches. DICE was so locked in on the game that they even abandoned the single-player campaign to make the best Battlefield multiplayer experience ever. The trailer even went as far as to recreate the classic Rendezvous moment from Battlefield 3. This game looked like it was finally going to answer the fanbase's demand to return to the classic Battlefield formula, immersive modern warfare. Rejoice, Battlefield fans.
Your savior is here!
Once again, EA has managed to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. Despite the incredible trailers and the promise of a return to form for the Battlefield franchise, Battlefield 2042 was a massive disappointment. The launch was riddled with technical issues, the maps did not flow well at all, destruction felt downplayed, and there were some critical gameplay changes that made 2042 feel like a cheap Call of Duty copycat. Like, they removed the class system in favor of operators, locking certain gameplay features to that character, which limited the player's overall experience. And honestly, that gameplay experience wasn't that great anyway. With the 128-player lobbies, DICE compensated by making the maps really big, with wide open areas with barely any coverage. This made traversal a dream for vehicles and enemy snipers, but an absolute nightmare for anyone who had to travel by foot. DICE eventually went and reworked a bunch of these maps, and while they are better now, the map design was far from the only problem. Like I said earlier, there was no campaign for Battlefield 2042, which to me is fine. I don't really play the Battlefield campaigns, and the ones I have played have been just decent at best. But since DICE was allocating all of their resources to the multiplayer, I was expecting more. Like, they tried going the live service route with a story that would develop with each new season. I don't know about you guys, but I'm about all tapped out on live service games. I can't do another one. And when 2042 dropped, I think this live service fatigue was already beginning to set in. So EA decided to combat that live service fatigue with even more live service elements. Yeah, what a great idea. Season passes, microtransactions, stupid skins that don't fit with the tone of the game. It honestly was a disgrace to the Battlefield name. Now, just like the map reworks, DICE eventually toned that stuff down and even reverted to a standard class system, but at this point, the damage was done. All eyes were now set on the next Battlefield game, the one that will hopefully reinstate the franchise to its former glory. And that brings us to Battlefield 6. The full reveal was yesterday, so if you haven't watched any of the new gameplay or trailers, I'd highly recommend it. I'm going to try and be objective here, but keep in mind, I'm a huge Battlefield fan, so it's best to form your own opinion after we go through the details. Okay, so first things first, the trailer is incredible. EA and DICE have plenty of issues, but building hype for their games is not one of them. The visual and sound design is top notch, and the color grading really reminds me of Battlefield 3 with a mix of modern HUD designs. Right from the get-go, we get clarification that the team is moving away from operators and going back to the class system. They acknowledge that they needed to go back to the franchise's roots, and for all intents and purposes, it looks like they are, or at least trying. It does have some live service elements, but I think at this point, that's going to be unavoidable. After the disastrous launch of 2042, the former director of DICE stepped away from the studio. Replacing him is Vince Zampelli, one of the original co-founders of Respawn Entertainment. Not only did they bring in a proven vet, but Battlefield 6 is also getting support from other studios besides DICE. Criterion, who previously helped with other Battlefield games and developed the Need for Speed series, is supposedly working on the single-player campaign. Motive, who recently worked on the Dead Space remake as well as the very underrated Star Wars Squadrons, is helping with the multiplayer aspect. And lastly, Ripple Effect, formerly DICE LA, will be working on the multiplayer and the return of Firestorm, the Battle Royale mode from Battlefield 5. All of these developers combined to form Battlefield Studios, the largest collaboration of a Battlefield game ever. I mean, the budget for Battlefield 6 is reportedly over $400 million, making it one of the most expensive games ever to be made. So then, let's talk about the actual game then, yeah? As far as I can tell, Battlefield 6 will be using the newest Frostbite engine, the one that Battlefield 2042 used, and honestly, I think that's fine. 2042 had a lot of issues, but the game engine was not one of them. The visuals in here look incredible, and the devs are really leaning into the destructibility. Seriously, they had the developers sitting in front of green screen explosions and stuff as if to really highlight how crazy this game will be or something. And to be fair, the destruction does seem off the charts. It looks like almost everything will be destructible, and you can use a variety of tools in the process, including a sledgehammer, I guess? Besides the return of classes and the over-the-top destruction, Battlefield 6 is also introducing revamped movement, and that looks pretty good. Looks kind of like the Omni movement from Black Ops 6, I like it a lot. They've also made it a point to say that each map has been handcrafted with deliberate game modes in mind, and depending on which mode you're playing, the map might be slightly tweaked to better fit the flow of gameplay. I hope this works out exactly how it sounds because the pace of the game in 2042 was one of its biggest issues. Also, I can't confirm this, but it seems as if they're ditching the 128 player lobbies for the traditional 64, which is probably the right move. Battlefield Portal is also making a return with more customization than ever. I didn't get too much into the Portal mode in 2042, but this one looks intriguing. Seems like a fun little spin-off mode where people a lot more creative than me can come up with some silly custom game modes to explore. Look, there's a lot more to the trailers that I'm glossing over, but essentially, Battlefield 6 looks incredible. Which is what scares me. I don't want to fall into the same trap that I do with every other Battlefield game. The devs are clearly confident in this one. I mean, they held their presentation in some weird 4D theater or something. But they also brought in hundreds of content creators to live stream the game after the event. They even created this new thing called Battlefield Labs, where they brought in a ton of playtesters to assist with development. Over and over again, the devs keep telling us that Battlefield 6 has gone through rigorous playtesting, and they're even bringing back the open beta. I don't know if this franchise has given me trust issues or what, but this all just seems too good to be true, right? Plus, there are some industry rumors out there that make me a bit hesitant on this game. Supposedly, EA expects Battlefield 6 to bring in an earth-shattering 100 million players. For context, that's roughly 4 times more than the best-selling game in the series, Battlefield 1. I can already see the headlines now. EA lays off hundreds of employees as Battlefield 6 fails to meet expectations. Am I crazy, or does that player count goal sound like EA just making an excuse for future layoffs? Plus, even if this game is incredible and reviews well with fans and critics alike, is that 100 million players even possible? Battlefield 6 will launch exclusively for current gen and PC, and in case you guys haven't noticed, this generation hasn't sold as well as previous ones. Almost everyone who owns a PS5 or Xbox Series X and S would have to buy it. The only way this is gonna work, at least in my mind, is if EA is planning on going big game hunting here. They don't just want all the Battlefield fans back, they want a share of that Call of Duty and Fortnite pie. The Portals mode is clearly a copycat of Fortnite's community modes, and Firestorm is their replica of Warzone. Now, if Firestorm is free to play, that 100 million player count might be at least somewhat possible, but still incredibly unlikely. I mean, Warzone reached that 100 million marker, but it took the game nearly a year to do so. And that's a free-to-play Call of Duty. I love Battlefield, but it's no Call of Duty. Call of Duty is aimed at the casual audience. If Battlefield goes that route, they will be undermining what made them successful in the first place. I'm just nervous that EA is going to try and reach this unrealistic goal at the expense of Battlefield 6. They're gonna have to appeal to a broader audience, and what's good for them isn't always good for the franchise. Like, I'm sorry, but I really don't want to see Peter Griffin running around Operation Firestorm. The devs have promised a plethora of post-launch content, and I'm not sure where that could go. I hope they stick with the simulation side of things more than the wacky crossover stuff. I don't know, but this video has just gotten way too long, so I want to hear from you guys. What did you think of the Battlefield 6 reveal? Are you excited? Are you hesitant? Are you gonna pre-order? Please don't. I have no doubt that DICE can turn around a bad game. They've done it plenty of times before, but I would really like to see them finally get a Battlefield launch right. Thankfully, we don't have much longer to wait, as the game drops in just a couple months on October 10th. So until then, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It really does mean a lot. I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.